Hi, fourth graders. We're looking at our story of the week, The Game of Silence, a historical fiction piece set in the 1850s. And it's about the Native American Ojibwe tribe when they were living next to Lake Superior. And they were going to have to deal with the idea of being forced off their land. And they gave you a word bank with some words that you would find in your story as you go that are in the Ojibwe language. And the one, makazinan, the last one, footwear usually made of moose hide or deer skin, often trimmed with beads or fur. We still have that word here today. It's a type of shoe called a moccasin. A moccasin, we call it. And you probably can visualize that if I say a moccasin as opposed to a makazinan. And that became part of the story as we go here too. But again, another word that we got from this Native American tribe, moccasin. And we see those today, those nice furry lined shoes. All right, so let's go to our story here. You have the brother and sister in the picture. The brother having the little doll in his hand that he's teasing her sister with, right? They were playing the game. Omakayas was trying to win the game of silence. The game of silence was played when the adults had something to talk about very important and they didn't want the children to talk. And so they were practicing this. And she talks about a little bit about how her and her brother's relationship are with this whole thing. And it's a typical brother-sister relationship that they have. And he's teasing her with the doll on her knee, on his knee, thinking that she will give in and say something, but it doesn't work. And he's kicked her and tried to get her to make a noise, and that didn't work. And she's waiting for her parents to get back with her cousins who are coming for this meeting. And eventually they get back. And then they start to get ready for dinner, and she says, the grandmother says, you can quit till after we eat. And so Omakayas and her little brother Pinch decide to stop playing the game until after they eat, and they also get to celebrate and talk with their cousins. Now, if you notice, Pinch doesn't look too happy in this picture over here. He was not happy that Omakayas didn't give up, and it shows kind of just a little bit about how much endurance she has. He did a lot of things to her, and she still did not give in. And they explain on this page about the different cousins, Twilight, Little Bee, Two Strike Girl, all their Indian names. Auntie Muskrat. A lot of times they had Native American names based on their actions or something about them, a feature that would allow them to have an Indian name like that. They talk about what they had to do. The girls had to sew, gather berries, and help their mothers clean fish and tan hides. So if they killed a deer, they would take the fur off, and then they would have to make it so that that's nice and smooth on the inside, so that they could make different things out of it. And of course, there's more girls there than anything, and so Pinch was outnumbered by the girls. They had venison soup, again, venison being deer, and they were able to just kind of have that time together. But now we come to this page where we have all these different pieces. We've got some marbles. These are the moccasins that we're talking about over here that Omakaya's grandmother made. We have a doll, some some different feather type things, and all different little trinkets there. And they tell us about the more impressive the prizes were for keeping silent, the more intense and important the meeting was going to be. So when you look at that, this was a very important meeting. They had some really good prizes there. And so they kind of scouted out the prize table and what they would really, really want. And then they're going to start the game of silence when Grandma starts this song, and she sings the game of silence song 4 times, and then it starts. And they all are starting the silence, and this conversation with the adults starts. And if you realize what happened to their attention, well, these children's attention started turning to the grown-up conversation. They all started listening, leaning forward. Nobody lost. They all got their prizes that night. And because more than the threat of losing a prize there was a bigger threat of losing their home. The ground that they had beneath their feet, they never questioned because it was always there. It was something that was always home. And now this was the discussion about it being taken away from them. And so they were quiet, not for the prize, but they were quiet at this point because they were concerned about the grown-ups' conversation and what might happen to them and the place that they live. Okay? That's your story. Let's just look at these yellow vocabulary words we had here. Retreated. If you retreat, you go back away from. Okay, if something's despised, it's something that you retreat, also kind of give up, give up or go away from. Despise, something that you don't like, almost to a point of hate. You really don't like it. Irritating, annoying, right? If something's irritating, we say, oh, that's very annoying. Same word, same meaning. Forfeit, to give up. Forfeit means to give up, right? Or to let the other team win. When we forfeit something, we let the other team win for usually a technicality or something that happened. Like if there's not enough players on a team, they have to forfeit. They have to give the other team the win because of not having enough players. Endurance, to have that ability to keep going. And if we have a lot of endurance, it means that we don't give up. We keep going and going. And then intensity, the strength at which something happens. So if something is intense, there's a lot involved in it. And then I think that's the last vocabulary word. Yep, that's the last vocabulary word. Remember, you can also go into your Reading Wonders part, and you can look at, before you take your test today, you can look at your vocabulary. You can go there and you'll find this, where let's say there's a word that you still don't understand, like ancestors. It says, my grandmother showed me a picture of my great-grandparents and other ancestors. Grandparents, great-grandparents, parents, and the ancestors, the people who one is descended from. Your sister or your brother, not your ancestor, because they're not the generation above you. You all came from your parents, so you're in the same, they're not your ancestors. Your parents would be your ancestors, your great-grandparents, your grandparents, that type of thing, the line of which you came from. And then you can see the picture, you can look at the routine. The routine tells you things, an example, asks you a question, kind of that three-peat of each word. Okay, so you can go into your vocabulary part of your website on reading, and you can look at those vocabulary words too before you take your test. So I hope it all goes well today, and have a great weekend.